In our previous lesson, we came to appreciate what child study is, why we conduct child study, and we concluded the lesson by looking at factors to consider in selecting a child for study. In this sub-module, we are going to look at the methods of collecting data once you have selected or narrowed down to a child or a group of children. The first method of collecting data is observation. Observation refers to actual or direct watching of the child, continually or at given time intervals. So you basically taking time off to watch. You can have short-term observation that is done in a day or a week. Then you have the long-term observation with the intention of following up the child for detailed information, which may not be obvious in the short-term 1 week or 1 day observations. It is important to note that observation can be indirect in that you can work or play with the child as you observe. So instead of placing a chair there and you sit and observe, a child may sense and therefore act out behavior, be nice because he has noticed you are seeing. But observation where you are involved, the indirect style, the child may not be aware that he is being observed. So therefore, that is the difference between the direct observations, having a special seat or a place to sit and you watch, against the indirect one where you work or play with the child. Should you decide to use observation as a method, it has its advantages. One, you the observer, you will not lose out any information. You will commit everything to memory and then record later. However, it comes with disadvantages. The child, if he's not in your class, he will view you as a visitor and may find it difficult to develop a close relationship with you. And therefore, the child may decide to simply act out the behavior. Now, should you decide to use observation, what are the different approaches of observation? The first one, we call it anecdotal records. What are anecdotal records? Anecdotal records, you are recording everything being observed without interpreting the data. In other words, you are out in the field recording your observations, recording the statements the child is making in the natural setting. So in this approach, you need to develop good shorthand skills and speed so that you can create greater amount of data that you will present in your records. So that is what we call the anecdotal record. The second tool you can use in observation is called the reflective journal. In the reflective journal, you the observer, you try to make meaning of the observations in relation to the situation around. In other words, there is, at that point of observing, you come up with interpretations and analysis of the behavior. A reflection describes what is seen, and it examines how the behavior happened and the meaning behind the behavior. Let's have a look at this reflective journal. And I want just to pick a section out of this statement. It says, the 2 times I observed him at the mealtime, Trevor, I'm not bringing this Trevor at the institute, eats only sauce. Most children like rice, but not Trevor. Probably rice is a daily dish, and he has lost interest in it. Are you not seeing? He's making the meaning. I have to find out about the family menu. It is also possible that he has no appetite. He's making meaning out of the observation. Being the only baby, he may lack company. Similarly, he may be served lots of junk food frequently, and therefore he has no appetite. I also noticed that Trevor has not been trained to take up his plate after eating. He has not mastered the routine of washing hands either. Could the mother think he is too young to learn to do simple things by himself? I shall talk to the mother about his behavior. Are you noticing the difference between a reflective journal and an anecdotal note? Here, you're trying to make meaning out of what you are observing. The third tool you can use in observation is called a checklist. A checklist is what we call a tool with predefined behaviors or competences. So you are watching someone and you are checking against a list of items or behaviors of a child of a specific age. So, for example, in early childhood, you can pick on those competences within the learning framework that are suitable for a child of 5 to 6 years. And let's take an example of a checklist of physical development of a 5-year-old. Are you noticing in this checklist? There are already competencies that have been highlighted. Your role is to tick whether you've observed them or not. And within this checklist is a comment section. There could be small comments that you want to add on. For example, you're watching this child. Can he stand and balance on one leg? Yes or no? Then you can comment and say he can actually balance for a longer period. Can he walk and run steadily? Yes. Yes, he can actually run at a very fast speed compared to others. That is a checklist. Now there is another tool you can use, a diary. A diary, just like the diaries you have, you basically record events of the day. So use a diary to provide summary of the day's events. And here it covers the activity that happened and the time when those events or activities took place. So basically, you note these activities in a notebook, providing brief descriptions. So a diary simply takes note of only the key events or landmarks. And this can be done at intervals. The intervals can be hourly or more than an hour. There is another approach we call the documentary review. What are you doing? Here, you are studying available records or documents. So you collect the child's health records, the immunization cards, the birth certificates, the growth monitoring sheet. You remember that sheet where the nurses would plot the growth of the child? Then you study these tools. It is called documentary review. It is not a direct observation approach or an indirect approach. You could collect academic records. You could collect the exercise book of the child, the homework books. You are observing documents. You look at the attendance register, and you can even fall back and look at the admission forms and the gate passes. So that is called a documentary review. The next one is what we call the interview. An interview is a face-to-face. You want to understand the opinion, the experiences, the views of this person. One of those famous interviews was conducted by Pierre Jones. You know Pierre Jones that we did see in one of our earlier course units? He conducted an interview with a 5-year-old. So he was interviewing this 5-year-old and asking him questions like, where do dreams come from? And you notice the child's comment, I think you sleep so well, then you can dream. Then he asked this child, do dreams come from us or from outside? And his perception was from outside. And so he says, when you are in your bed and you dream, where is the dream? And the child says, in the bed, under the blanket. So this is an interview. It's an interview. Now, the other approaches are informal talks or conversations. Informal talks or conversations. What do we mean by informal talks? You seated back, relaxed, but you are getting the information. You're leaving the participant to freely talk in a natural setting, without the child wondering why you are writing down, why you are recording. In fact, they are not aware that they are being interviewed. It is informal. Questionnaire. Questionnaire, it's a collection of written question items, usually answered in the absence of the researcher. So you put up a questionnaire, and the questionnaire can have open-ended questions or close-ended questions. So, for example, close-ended questions could be multiple choices. Now, what is a good questionnaire? What makes a questionnaire good? One, you should avoid more than one question within a question. Let one question identify information on just one aspect. Two, avoid using confusing words. Three, you should have clear instructions to the one who is going to use it. Four, avoid lengthy questions. So the moment we have those aspects sorted out, then we have a good questionnaire. In our next lesson now, having collected the data, we are going to see the procedure of conducting a child study. Thank you very much.